notice how some celebrities treat the truth like it's an optional accessory? One minute they're swearing by their story, the next, boom. The receipts roll in and the whole world catches them red-handed. From staged hate crimes to fake Spanish accents, from stolen gold medals to lip-syncing careers, these lies didn't just crack, they exploded. And the reason a judge once compared one of these lies to a Hollywood screenplay? Yeah, you'll want to hear that. Welcome back to A Sip of Drama, your courtroom-approved gossip headquarters. Today, we're counting down 10 celebs who were caught lying. And trust me, these fibs weren't harmless white lies. These were career-melting, reputation-torching, your lawyer just face-palmed in court kind of lies. Now, lying in Hollywood isn't exactly breaking news, but these stories, these are the ones that blew up headlines, sparked lawsuits, and made even the most polished PR teams scream into a pillow. All right, legal tea first, drama second. Let's break it down. And hey, if you love seeing the rich and famous get legally roasted, don't forget to smash that like button. It fuels my caffeine addiction and honestly keeps these stories coming. At number 10, flexing his way into the countdown, we've got Hulk Hogan. And trust me, the only thing bigger than his biceps were his lies. See, Hulk wasn't just a wrestling icon. He was also the king of tall tales. And the man didn't sprinkle lies here and there. No, he body-slammed reality every chance he got. Let's start with the classics. Hogan swore up and down that he was almost the bassist for Metallica. According to him, the band begged him to join before they made it big. Metallica, by the way, they had no idea what he was talking about. Lars Ulrich once laughed and said, "That never happened." Ouch. Then there's the Oscar story. Hogan claimed The Wrestler, the gritty 2008 film that scored Mickey Rourke an Academy Award nomination, was written for him, and that he turned it down because he didn't like how dark it was. Except, the director Darren Aronofsky confirmed Hulk was never considered, which means Mickey Rourke owes his comeback not to Hollywood, but to Hulk's imagination. And here's my favorite. Hulk once bragged that he wrestled 400 days in a single year. Quick refresher, there are only 365 days in a year. Unless the Hulkster found a wormhole and was suplexing aliens in another dimension, the math doesn't quite check out. Now, here's where it gets juicy with the legal drama. In 2012, when Hulk's infamous sex tape leaked, he didn't just sue Gawker for invasion of privacy, he also had to take the stand. And in court, Hogan made one of the strangest arguments in legal history, that Terry Bollea, his real name, and Hulk Hogan, the wrestling persona, were different people. So when Hulk bragged about his sex life in interviews, there was Hulk Hogan talking, not Terry Bollea. Translation, the lies didn't count if it was in character. And you know what? The jury kind of bought it. Hogan won a $140 million judgment that ultimately bankrupted Gawker. Think about it. The man who once claimed to wrestle more nights than exist in a calendar year managed to legally argue that his alter ego was the one stretching the truth, and he walked away richer than ever. So yeah, Hulk Hogan didn't just flex in the ring, he flexed in court. But if you think wrestling with reality is bold, wait until you hear about a royal who lied so badly, doctors had to publicly explain how sweat works. Sliding into number 9 with a scandal so bizarre it made Buckingham Palace sweat, even if he supposedly couldn't. It's Prince Andrew. In 2019, facing explosive accusations of ties to Jeffrey Epstein's underage victims, Andrew sat down for a BBC interview. And his defense? Brace yourself. He claimed he physically could not sweat. A bizarre medical condition from his days in the Falklands War allegedly left his glands broken. Therefore, he couldn't possibly have been the sweaty guy on the nightclub dance floor witnesses described. Cue the collective facepalm of Britain. Doctors chimed in, journalists chuckled mid-reporting, and months later, paparazzi caught him, you guessed it, sweating like he'd just run a marathon. The fallout was brutal. The interview was dubbed Car Crash TV. Andrew was stripped of royal duties, and the palace scrambled into damage control. Legally, he faced civil suits in the U.S. that ended with a reported multi-million-dollar settlement. Publicly, he went from His Royal Highness to His Royal Hot Mess. Bottom line, when your legal defense hinges on the idea that you're biologically incapable of sweating, you've already lost. And if you thought that excuse was ridiculous, wait until you hear about a comedian who defended lies by calling them emotional truth. At number 8, the man who made storytelling an art form until the story started telling on him, Hassan Minhaj. Minhaj blew up with Patriot Act in his Netflix specials, where he mixed political comedy with deeply personal tales, racism, heartbreak, even threats to his family. But in 2023, a New Yorker investigation dropped a bomb. Some of those jaw-dropping stories, totally fabricated. The white powder letter that allegedly sent his daughter to the hospital never happened. The prom date who supposedly rejected him because of racism didn't go down that way. Even the big life-defining moments were either exaggerated or entirely made up. When called out, Hassan defended himself, saying he was chasing emotional truth, not literal accuracy. Translation: the vibes were real, even if the facts weren't. Here's the kicker. While he didn't face a courtroom, the scandal torpedoed his credibility. Comedy critics questioned whether his specials were stand-up or fan fiction, and legally, he tiptoed near dangerous ground. When you sell a show as true stories, and they're not, you're flirting with false advertising. The fallout? Canceled gigs, lost trust, and the painful realization that sometimes the punchline is you. But if you think bending the truth on stage is bold, wait until you hear about a yoga influencer who turned Boston into Barcelona. At lucky number 7, we've got the wellness guru who faked her way into flamenco, Hilaria Baldwin. For years, Alec Baldwin's wife presented herself as a glamorous Spaniard. Thick accent, Spanish phrases, even the infamous "how you say cucumber" moment on morning TV. She claimed she moved from Spain to the US as a kid, but internet detectives went digging and found out Hilaria was actually Hillary Thomas, born and raised in Boston. No Spanish roots, just a vacation home her family sometimes visited. The Spanish accent? Turns out it came and went depending on the interview. When the lie unraveled, social media roasted her. Hashtag Hilaria Exposed trended, memes flooded in, and even fellow celebs joked about suddenly discovering their secret European heritage. Now, was it a courtroom scandal? Number. But it did spark some legal chatter. When your entire brand, books, yoga videos, sponsorships, is built on a fabricated identity, you're skating dangerously close to false advertising. The fallout? Public humiliation, a dented reputation, and a marriage already under a microscope thanks to Alec's own controversies. Bottom line, if you're going to fake an accent, maybe don't pick one from a country full of people with internet access. And if you thought pretending to be Spanish was wild, wait until you meet an influencer who pretended to be a Division I rower. At number 6, we've got the YouTuber who went from makeup tutorials to federal scandal headlines, Olivia Jade. In 2019, the college admissions scandal rocked Hollywood, and Olivia became its poster child. Her parents, Full House star Lori Loughlin and designer Massimo Giannulli, paid $500,000 to sneak her and her sister into USC. How? By faking them as elite rowing recruits. Problem: Olivia Jade had never touched an oar in her life. The evidence? Photoshopped images of her on a rowing machine, doctored athletic resumes, and phony applications. It was fraud with a side of Photoshop. Here's where it got legally ugly. Lori and Massimo were charged with conspiracy to commit mail fraud and honest services fraud. They both pled guilty and served prison time. Olivia herself wasn't charged, but her brand deals vanished overnight. Sephora cut ties, and fans flooded her socials with row, row, row your scam jokes. The scandal exposed a bigger truth. The rich really were buying their kids' way into elite schools, and the FBI wasn't having it. Bottom line, Olivia Jade didn't just fake her way into college, she faked her way into infamy. And if you think photoshopping your college application is bold, wait until you hear about an Olympic champion who faked an entire robbery. Before we jump into the top 5, quick courtroom recess. If you're sipping this drama like it's a venti latte, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a case here on A Sip of Drama. And hey, dropping a like isn't just free, it's basically jury duty in our little courtroom of scandals. The difference? This jury actually enjoys the drama. All right, recess over, let's get back to the chaos. Cracking into the top 5, we've got Ryan Lochte, Olympic swimming golden boy turned gas station storyteller. After dominating the pool in Rio 2016, Lochte made headlines again, but not for medals. He claimed he and 3 teammates were robbed at gunpoint by men posing as Brazilian police. The world was horrified. A decorated athlete victimized abroad? It was international news. But then the receipts came in. Surveillance footage, witness statements, and police reports revealed a very different story. The robbery was actually Lochte and his buddies drunkenly vandalizing a gas station bathroom. The armed robbers, security guards demanding they pay for damages. The lie exploded. Overnight, Lochte went from American hero to global punchline. Brazilian authorities accused him of filing a false police report, a serious crime that could have landed him in jail. He dodged prosecution, but the fallout was brutal. A 10-month suspension from swimming, millions lost in endorsements, and late-night hosts rebranding him as the liar of the games. Here's the kicker. Lochte didn't just embarrass himself, he embarrassed the U.S. on the world stage. His excuse later? I over-exaggerated. Translation: I lied, but in a very athletic way. And legally? He was lucky. Brazil could have pressed charges hard, but instead they let the scandal simmer in the court of public opinion. Bottom line, in the end, Lochte wasn't robbed at gunpoint, but he sure robbed himself of his own reputation. And if you thought faking a robbery was reckless, wait until you hear about a journalist who lied his way into a war story. At number 4, we've got a newsman who should have been fact-checking himself, Brian Williams. For years, Williams was the face of NBC Nightly News, the trustworthy anchor Americans invited into their living rooms every night. But behind that calm delivery was a story that eventually unraveled his career. Williams often recounted a dramatic tale. During the Iraq War in 2003, the military helicopter he was in came under enemy fire and was forced to land. A harrowing cinematic moment, except it wasn't true. Veterans who were actually there called him out, saying his chopper never got hit. The attack happened to another helicopter in a completely different convoy. When the truth broke in 2015, it wasn't just a fib. It was a credibility meltdown. Williams had inflated his war zone experience, the one story that gave him a kind of soldier's badge of honor. For a journalist, that's career suicide. NBC suspended him for 6 months without pay, stripped him of his anchor chair, and demoted him to MSNBC. And while Williams eventually returned to TV, the trust was gone. Once your job is literally report the facts, lying about dodging rockets doesn't exactly scream credibility. Here's the legal kicker. While he didn't face charges, NBC was quietly worried about defamation. Because inventing military glory while real veterans bled? That's not just a bad look. It's insulting. Bottom line, when your brand is truth, even one lie can sink the ship. And Williams's helicopter story didn't just crash, it burned. And if you thought one man's fib could ruin a career, wait until you hear about a duo whose entire act was built on a lie. Taking the bronze medal in our countdown of liars, we've got Rob Pilatus and Fab Morvan, better known as Milli Vanilli. And their lie wasn't a slip-up, it was their entire career. In the late 80s, Milli Vanilli looked unstoppable. They had chart-topping hits, sold millions of albums, and in 1990, they even snagged a Grammy for Best New Artist. They were handsome, stylish, and could dance like no tomorrow, the perfect pop package. But there was one teeny-tiny problem. They weren't actually singing at all. Every single track was recorded by other vocalists. Rob and Fab were just the faces, lip-syncing their way through concerts and music videos. The charade came crashing down during a live performance in 1989 when the track skipped on repeat. Girl, you know it's... And suddenly, the whole world knew it wasn't their voices. When the truth was confirmed, chaos erupted. Lawsuits piled in from angry fans demanding refunds for albums and tickets. Their Grammy revoked. The only time in history that's happened. Rob and Fab went from international superstars to the punchline of the decade, practically overnight. And here's the legal kicker. This wasn't just embarrassing. It was consumer fraud. You pay to see artists perform, not to watch a high-budget karaoke act. The lawsuits eventually led to settlements, but the damage to their names was permanent. Bottom line, Milli Vanilli didn't just get caught lying. They became the textbook case of music industry deception. Proof that sometimes the truth hits harder than a skipping record. And if you think lip syncing is scandalous, wait until you meet a man who lied his way through 7 Tour de France titles. Rolling into number 2, we've got Lance Armstrong, once the golden boy of cycling, cancer survivor, and 7-time Tour de France champion. To the world, he was more than an athlete. He was a hero. And through it all, Armstrong swore he was clean. Under oath, in interviews, even while suing people who accused him, he denied doping with the conviction of a man reciting the 10 Commandments. He even sued journalists and former teammates for defamation when they dared to call him out. The arrogance was Olympic level, but behind the scenes, he was running one of the most sophisticated doping programs in sports history. Blood transfusions, EPO, performance-enhancing cocktails. It was like Breaking Bad, but with bikes. His entire team was in on it. In 2012, the U.S. anti-doping agency dropped the hammer. They stripped Armstrong of his 7 Tour de France titles and banned him for life. Years of lies, endorsements, and Livestrong wristbands turned to ash overnight. The legal fallout was brutal. The U.S. Postal Service, which had sponsored his team, sued him for fraud, arguing they'd been tricked into funding a doping ring. Armstrong eventually settled for $5 million. Pocket change compared to the $100 million they could have gone after. He also had to pay millions more to former sponsors and whistleblowers he'd bullied in court. The final gut punch came in 2013, when Armstrong sat across from Oprah and finally admitted it all. Millions watched the confession, not in admiration, but in disbelief that a man could lie so brazenly for so long. Bottom line, Armstrong didn't just cheat. He weaponized his lie, ruined careers of people who told the truth, and turned the greatest comeback story in sports into one of the greatest scandals in history. And if you think lying your way through 7 tours is wild, wait until you see the number 1 spot, a Hollywood hate crime hoax that had the entire country fooled. At number 1, yes, topping the list of celebrity lies so outrageous they belong in a screenplay, we've got Jussie Smollett. And fittingly, a judge actually said his story read like bad Hollywood fiction. In January 2019, the Empire actor claimed he was the victim of a brutal hate crime in Chicago. He told police he'd been attacked at night by 2 men who yelled racist and homophobic slurs, shouted, "This is MAGA country," poured bleach on him, and tied a noose around his neck. The story was explosive. National headlines, endless media coverage, and a tidal wave of celebrity and political support. But then, the cracks showed. Surveillance footage, phone records, and receipts painted a very different picture. The alleged attackers? 2 brothers Jussie actually knew from the set of Empire. And those 2 later testified that Smollett had paid them to stage the entire assault. The motive? Prosecutors argued Smollett wanted to boost his public profile and bargaining power for a bigger salary on Empire. If true, it was a career gamble so reckless it made Ryan Lochte's gas station lie look like child's play. The investigation turned into a circus. Chicago PD spent thousands of hours and resources untangling the mess, while Smollett stuck to his story, doubling down even as evidence piled up. The media dubbed it Smollett Gate. By December 2021, it landed in court. Smollett was convicted of 5 felony counts of disorderly conduct for lying to police. At sentencing, the judge eviscerated him, saying he had shattered trust and wasted massive resources. The kicker? The judge compared his fake attack to a Hollywood script. Only this one was unbelievable because it was written by him. Smollett's career cratered. Empire wrote him out, Hollywood distanced itself, and his name became shorthand for celebrity hoax. Even after serving jail time, he continues to insist he's innocent. But public opinion? Case closed. Bottom line, when your lie wastes police resources, hijacks national outrage, and lands you in court, it's not just a fib, it's the biggest celebrity lie of our time. And there you have it, the top 10 celebs who got caught lying. From Hulk Hogan wrestling with math to Jussie Smollett scripting his own downfall, one thing's clear. In Hollywood, the truth is stranger and way messier than fiction. What I love about this list is how every single lie came with its own unique flavor of chaos. Some were funny, like Hilaria Baldwin forgetting the English word for cucumber. Others were heartbreaking, like Lance Armstrong crushing millions of fans who believed in him. And some, straight up dangerous, like Smollett's hoax wasting police resources and public trust. But here's the real question. Which of these lies do you think was the most unforgivable? Was it Milli Vanilli scamming the music industry? Or Prince Andrew sweating through his own excuse? Drop your verdict in the comments. Let's see where the jury lands. And hey, if you enjoyed this little courtroom of chaos, make sure you subscribe to A Sip of Drama and hit that bell. Around here, we've always got fresh scandals on the docket, and trust me, you don't want to miss the next hearing. Until then, stay skeptical, stay entertained,